The restaurant was quiet that evening. Soft music played in the background. Plates clinked. People laughed in low voices. It was the kind of place where everyone looked polished, clean, and comfortable. Then she walked in. A pregnant black woman stood at the door, holding it open with one hand, her other hand resting gently on her belly. She was wearing a simple dress. Nothing fancy, nothing loud, just clean and neat. Her belly was round, very round. She was close to giving birth. For a moment, she stopped and looked around. Every table was filled. Couples, families, business people. Most of them did not look like her. Some eyes lifted. Some eyes stayed too long. She felt it. She always did. She took a slow breath and walked inside. Each step was careful, slow, heavy. Pregnancy had not been easy on her body. Her back hurt. Her feet were swollen. But she did not complain. She never did. She reached the hostess stand. No one came. She waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. A white waiter walked past her without looking. She cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm and polite. "May I have a table, please?" The waiter stopped. He looked at her from head to toe. His eyes paused on her belly. He frowned. "We're busy," he said shortly. She looked around again. A few tables were open. Clean. Ready. "I can wait," she replied gently. The waiter sighed, annoyed. He grabbed a menu and pointed to a small table near the back, close to the kitchen door. "There," he said. "That's all we got." The table was cramped. A chair was missing. The noise from the kitchen was loud. But she nodded. "Thank you," she said. She walked slowly to the table and sat down. The chair was hard, uncomfortable. She adjusted herself carefully so the baby would not press too much. She placed her purse on the table and folded her hands. Minutes passed. No menu. No water. No greeting. A couple at the next table got served before they even sat down. Another table laughed as drinks arrived quickly. She watched quietly. She did not look angry. She did not look surprised. She looked tired. She raised her hand slightly as the waiter passed again. "Excuse me," she said. "Could I please have some water?" The waiter stopped. He turned slowly. He looked at her like she had asked for something impossible. "You can wait," he said. "I'll get to you when I get to you." Then he walked away. Her lips pressed together. She lowered her hand and stared at the table. Inside her, the baby kicked. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered softly, "It's okay." Another 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Her throat felt dry. Her head felt light. People around her noticed now. A woman across the room looked uncomfortable. A man shook his head slightly, but said nothing. No one spoke up. Finally, she stood up slowly, holding the chair for balance. She walked toward the waiter near the bar. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I don't want trouble. I just need some water. I'm pregnant." The waiter laughed. A short, sharp laugh. "Pregnant or not," he said, loud enough for others to hear. "This is not a free place." The room went silent. Her face burned. Not from anger, from shame. She swallowed. "I can pay," she said. "I just need water." The waiter's eyes hardened. He picked up a glass from the counter. He filled it halfway. Then he walked toward her. Some people watched. Some looked away. She felt something bad in the air. A heavy feeling. The waiter stopped in front of her. He smirked. "You people always think you deserve special treatment," he said. Her hand moved to her belly again. "I'm just asking for water," she whispered. The waiter lifted the glass slightly. Water sloshed inside. The room held its breath. No one knew what would happen next. No one knew who she really was. And no one knew that this moment, this quiet, painful moment, was about to change everything. The waiter stood in front of her. The glass was in his hand. Clear water. Cold. Simple. Something that should never be hard to give. The pregnant woman looked at the glass. Then she looked at his face. His smile was thin. Fake. Cruel. She felt her heart beat faster. The restaurant was quiet now. Too quiet. She spoke softly. "Please," she said. "I just need water." The waiter tilted his head. "Please," he repeated, mocking her. "You people always say please when you want something." Her eyes lowered. She did not answer. He took one step closer. "You know," he said loudly, "this place has standards. Class." Some people shifted in their seats. A fork dropped somewhere. You don't look like you belong here, the waiter continued. And honestly, you're making people uncomfortable. The woman felt heat rush to her face. She looked around. Eyes met hers, then moved away. No one said a word. She placed both hands on her belly, breathing slowly. She had learned how to stay calm. Years of practice. I don't want trouble, she said. I just want to sit, eat, and drink some water. The waiter laughed again, this time louder. You should be thankful we even let you sit here, he said. Most places wouldn't. That was when something changed inside her. Not anger, not fear, but a deep, quiet sadness. She remembered other moments, other places, other looks. She remembered being followed in stores, being ignored in lines, being judged without a word spoken. And now this. She was carrying a life inside her. A child who would one day ask questions. Why do people stare, Mommy? Why do they talk like that? The thought made her chest tight. The waiter raised the glass a little higher. You want water so bad, he said. Here. For a second, she thought he was going to give it to her. She stepped forward. That was her mistake. The waiter's smile vanished. In one fast move, he threw the water. It splashed across her face, her hair, her dress. Cold water soaked her belly. The baby kicked hard. The sound of the splash echoed in the room. A woman gasped. A man stood up halfway, then slowly sat back down. The pregnant woman froze. Water dripped from her chin onto the floor. Her hands trembled. She did not scream. She did not cry. She stood there, shocked, her eyes wide. The waiter stared at her, breathing hard. Now you got your water, he said. Happy. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She slowly wiped her face with her sleeve. Her dress clung to her body. Heavy. Vet. She felt exposed. Small. The manager rushed over. What is going on here? He asked, his voice tense. The waiter spoke quickly. She caused a scene. I had to handle it. The woman turned to the manager. Her voice was shaking, but clear. He threw water on me, she said. I'm pregnant. The manager looked at her, then at the waiter, then at the wet floor. He hesitated. Well, maybe we can all calm down, he said. Let's not make this bigger than it is. Not make it bigger. Her hands clenched into fists. Bigger? Water on her face. Shame in front of strangers. Silence from everyone. She felt tears rise, but she forced them back. She lifted her chin. I want to leave, she said. Now. The waiter rolled his eyes. Good, he said. Do us a favor. She turned toward the door. Each step felt heavy. Her shoes squished on the floor. As she reached the exit, she stopped. She turned back slowly. Her eyes met the waiter's. You should be careful, she said quietly. Some people have power you can't see. The waiter laughed. Yeah, he said. And who do you think you are? She did not answer. She opened the door and walked out into the night. Cold air hit her wet skin. She stood outside, shaking. Then she reached into her purse. Her fingers wrapped around her phone. She looked at the screen. She whispered one sentence before pressing call. They did it again. The door closed behind her. The sound was soft, but felt loud. She stood outside the restaurant, frozen. Water still dripped from her hair onto the ground. Her dress was heavy and cold. Her hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself. Inside her belly, the baby moved again. Harder this time. She gasped softly and bent forward, placing both hands on her stomach. Easy, she whispered. Easy, my love. The night air felt sharp against her skin. Cars passed by. People laughed somewhere down the street. Life moved on like nothing had happened. But her world had stopped. She leaned against the wall, breathing slowly. In, out, in, out. Her mind replayed the moment again and again. The glass, the smile, the splash. She had felt many kinds of pain in her life. Physical pain, emotional pain. But this was different. This was humiliation. She had stood there, soaked while people watched. While no one helped. While no one said a word. Her throat tightened. She wiped her face again, but the water kept coming. Or maybe those were tears now. She could not tell. A memory flashed in her mind. Her husband kissing her forehead that morning. Text me when you're home, he had said. Always, she smiled back. She pulled her phone from her purse. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She did not want to worry him. He was away. He always was. His job demanded it. But something inside her said this was different. This was not small. This was not something to keep quiet. She pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. He answered. Hey, his voice said. Calm. Steady. Familiar. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Talk to me, he said gently. Her voice finally broke. They threw water on me. Silence. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, the kind that feels dangerous. Where are you? He asked quietly. She told him. I'm okay, she added quickly. The baby is okay. Another pause. I'm coming, he said. The call ended. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold ground. She hugged her knees as best as she could with her belly in the way. She waited. Inside the restaurant, the mood was strange. People whispered. Forks stopped moving. No one laughed anymore. The waiter wiped his hands on his apron like nothing had happened. A woman at a nearby table stood up. That was wrong, she said, her voice shaking. The waiter snapped back. Mind your business. The manager rubbed his forehead. Let's all calm down, he said again. We don't need trouble. Trouble. The word floated in the air. The waiter scoffed. She'll be fine. People like her always play the victim. Some customers nodded. Others looked sick to their stomach. No one knew what to do. Minutes passed. Then headlights flashed through the window. A black SUV pulled up slowly outside. It did not park like a normal car. It stopped with purpose. The engine stayed on. The restaurant door opened. Cold air rushed in. A man stepped inside. Tall. Broad shoulders. Calm eyes. He scanned the room once. Not angry. Focused. The noise dropped to zero. Every instinct in the room shifted. The waiter frowned. We're closed, he said. You need to. The man raised one hand. Just one. The waiter stopped talking. The man walked past him without another word. He went back outside. The waiter laughed nervously. What was that about? No one answered. Outside, the man knelt beside the pregnant woman. He did not speak at first. He took off his jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he placed one hand on her belly, one on her back. I'm here, he said softly. She looked up at him. The strength she had been holding finally cracked. She leaned into his chest. Inside the restaurant, people watched through the window. They saw the way he held her, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes lifted slowly and looked back at the building. The waiter's smile faded. Something was wrong, very wrong. The man stood up. He turned toward the restaurant. And that was the moment everything began to change. The man helped her stand up. He did it slowly, carefully, as if every movement mattered. One hand stayed on her back. The other stayed on her belly. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, but her eyes were wet. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't want to call you. He shook his head. You did the right thing. She looked at him. His face was calm, but she could feel something under that calm. Something strong, controlled. Inside the restaurant, people watched through the glass. No one spoke. The waiter leaned toward the window, trying to see better. Who is that guy? Someone whispered. The manager stepped closer to the door. His smile was gone now, replaced by worry. Outside, the man took a slow breath and looked at the building again. The restaurant lights reflected in his eyes. He had seen places like this before. Not restaurants, but rooms where people underestimated others. Rooms where silence meant danger. Rooms where respect decided everything. He gently guided his wife toward the entrance. Stay close, he said. She nodded. They walked back inside together. The door opened. Every head turned. The waiter straightened up. Hey, he said loudly. You can't just come in here. The man did not look at him. Not yet. He walked straight to the table where his wife had been sitting. The wet chair. The puddle on the floor. He paused. Then he slowly removed his jacket from her shoulders and placed it over the chair, like he was marking something, claiming it. The silence felt heavy. The manager cleared his throat. Sir, he said, forcing a smile. If there's a problem, we can talk about it calmly. The man finally turned. He looked at the manager. His voice was quiet, even, almost polite. My wife was assaulted here, he said. The word hit the room like a slap. Assaulted. The waiter laughed nervously. Man, it was just water. She made a big deal out of nothing. The man's eyes moved to him. Slowly, carefully, the waiter stopped laughing. For the first time, he felt it. Fear. The man stepped closer. Not fast. Not angry. Controlled. Did you throw water on her? The man asked. The waiter swallowed. She was being difficult. The man nodded once. I didn't ask why, he said. I asked if you did it. The waiter looked at the manager, then at the people watching. Yes, he said. So what? The man reached into his pocket. The room stiffened. Some people held their breath. He pulled out his wallet, opened it, and placed an ID on the table. No one could see it clearly from far away, but the manager could. His eyes widened. His face drained of color. Sir, the manager whispered. The man did not raise his voice. Call the police, he said calmly. Now, the waiter scoffed. You think you scare me with some fake badge? The man leaned closer. You should hope they come fast, he said. The manager backed away, already pulling out his phone. Outside, another black SUV pulled up. Then another. Men stepped out. Not loud. Not aggressive. Focused. Alert. They stood near the entrance, scanning the area. Customers began to panic. Who are those people? Someone whispered. The waiter's confidence cracked. This is getting out of hand, he said, stepping back. The man placed one hand on the table. Steady. You humiliated my wife, he said quietly. You humiliated my child. The waiter opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The police sirens sounded in the distance. Loud. Closer. The manager's hands shook. The man turned to his wife. Sit down, he said gently. It's over. She sat. Her breathing slowed. She watched him now, really watched him. Not just as her husband, but as someone the room suddenly respected. The sirens stopped outside. Doors opened. Officers walked in. The room exploded with noise. Questions. Voices. Movement. The waiter pointed. He's threatening me. The officer looked at the man, then looked at the ID on the table. Everything changed. Yes, sir, the officer said quietly. The waiter froze. The pregnant woman held her belly and exhaled. For the first time since she walked into that restaurant, she felt safe. And the waiter finally understood. This was not just a husband. This was a man with power he never saw coming. The police officers stood still. The sound in the restaurant slowly faded. No one was talking now. The officer closest to the table picked up the ID. He looked at it carefully. Then he looked up at the man standing in front of him. His posture changed. Yes, sir, the officer said again. Captain. The word hit the room like thunder. Captain. The waiter blinked. Captain, he repeated confused. Captain of what? The officer handed the ID back with both hands. U.S. Navy, he said. Special Operations. The waiter laughed once. A weak laugh. Come on, he said. That's just a title. He's just some guy. The officer turned to him. No, he said firmly. He's not. The room felt smaller now. The manager stepped back until he hit the wall. Customers whispered behind their hands. The man finally spoke again. My name doesn't matter, he said calmly. What matters is what happened here. He pointed gently toward his wife. She sat quietly, holding her belly, her face pale but steady. She walked in here alone, he continued. She was polite. She asked for water. The waiter tried to interrupt. She was causing... Stop, the officer said sharply. The waiter went silent. The man's voice stayed even. Controlled. You ignored her. You insulted her, he said. And then you assaulted her. The waiter shook his head. It was just water. The man took one step closer. Water can drown, he said. Humiliation can scar. The waiter swallowed hard. The officer turned to the pregnant woman. Ma'am, he said gently. Are you okay to speak? She nodded. Yes, she said softly. I am. Her voice carried through the room. He laughed at me, she continued. He said I didn't belong here. He threw water on me while I was pregnant. She placed one hand on her belly. The officer nodded and wrote everything down. Is that true? He asked the waiter. The waiter's mouth opened. No words came out. One of the officers gestured toward the manager. Sir, do you have cameras? The manager nodded quickly. Yes. Yes, of course. They walked to the back. Minutes felt like hours. The room waited. The man stood beside his wife now. One hand rested on her shoulder. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten anyone. He didn't need to. The footage played on a small screen. Everyone saw it. The waiter ignoring her. The mocking smile. The water thrown hard and fast. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. Oh my God, someone whispered. The waiter's face turned white. The officer turned off the screen. "That's enough," he said. He looked at the waiter. "You're under arrest for assault." The waiter stepped back. "Wait, what? No, this is crazy." The officer took his arm. "You have the right to remain silent," he said. The waiter looked around, desperate. The manager avoided his eyes. "This place ruined me," the waiter shouted. "You ruined me." The man finally spoke again. "No," he said calmly. "You ruined yourself." The waiter was led away. The door closed behind him. Silence returned. The manager approached the man, sweating. "Sir," he said, "I want to apologize. This does not reflect our values." The man looked at him. "Your silence reflected them perfectly," he said. The manager had no answer. The officer turned back to the woman. "Ma'am," he said, "we'll take you to the hospital if you want, just to be safe." She looked at her husband. He nodded. "Yes," she said. "Thank you." As they prepared to leave, the man paused. He looked around the restaurant one last time. "Respect is not earned by money," he said quietly, "or skin color. It's given by being human." No one moved. No one argued. Outside, the night felt calmer. The man opened the car door for his wife. As she sat down, she held his hand. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I will always come," he replied. Inside the restaurant, people would talk about this night for years. But for the waiter, this was the moment his life changed forever. The restaurant felt different now. Not loud, not proud, small. The police cars were still outside, lights flashing softly against the windows. People stood in groups, whispering, checking their phones, replaying the moment in their heads. The waiter was gone, but his actions were still there. The manager stood near the counter, hands shaking. His face was pale. Sweat ran down his temples. One of the officers turned to him. "Sir," he said, "this restaurant is now under investigation." The manager nodded quickly. "Of course, we will cooperate fully." Another officer spoke. "We will also need staff statements." Some workers looked down at the floor. Others stared straight ahead. No one smiled anymore. The man stood beside his wife as she sat on a chair near the entrance. A paramedic gently checked her blood pressure. "You're doing great," the paramedic said kindly. "The baby's heartbeat is strong." She closed her eyes in relief. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but from release. The man squeezed her hand. Across the room, a woman stepped forward. "I saw everything," she said. He treated her like she was nothing. Another man nodded. "I saw it too. We should have spoken up sooner." The officer wrote their names down. Silence had protected the wrong person for too long. That silence was breaking. The manager cleared his throat and stepped closer to the man. "Sir," he said carefully, "that waiter is fired. Effective immediately. He will never work here again." The man looked at him. "That should have happened before the water was thrown," he replied calmly. The manager lowered his head. "Yes," he said, "you're right." Outside, a small crowd had gathered. Someone had already posted a video online. Phones were raised. People whispered. "What happened?" "That pregnant woman." The waiter was racist. The story was spreading fast. Too fast to hide. An officer approached the man again. "There will be a report," he said. "This may go further than tonight." The man nodded. "It should." The manager swallowed hard. "What can we do?" he asked desperately. The man looked around the room. "At minimum," he said, "training, accountability, and real change." The manager nodded again. "We will do all of it." But his voice lacked confidence. Because he knew the damage was already done. The paramedic finished checking the woman. "You can go home now," she said gently. "But please rest." The man helped his wife stand up slowly. As they moved toward the door, someone clapped. One clap, then another. Soon, the room filled with applause. Not loud, not cheerful, respectful. The woman stopped and turned. She looked at the people who had watched her suffer. She did not smile, but she spoke. "I didn't want this," she said softly. "I just wanted water." Her words cut deeper than shouting ever could. "I hope next time," she continued, "you don't stay quiet." She turned and walked out. Outside, fresh air filled her lungs. She leaned into her husband's side. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I am now." Across town, the waiter sat in the back of a police car. His head was in his hands. He replayed the night over and over. The joke, the laugh, the water. He had felt powerful for a moment. Now he felt small. His phone buzzed. Messages, missed calls, notifications. The video was everywhere. Comments poured in. This is disgusting. How could he do that? Fire him forever. He stared at the screen, his stomach sinking. For the first time, he understood. Actions have weight and consequences. The restaurant released a public statement the next morning. Apologies, promises, words. But people remembered actions more than words. Customers canceled reservations. Reviews dropped. Trust was broken. At home, the pregnant woman rested on the couch. A blanket covered her legs. Her husband sat beside her. Their hands were linked. I don't want our child to grow up scared, she said quietly. He nodded. They won't. She smiled faintly. Because they'll know their worth. Outside, the world kept moving. But one thing had changed. A line had been crossed, and it would not be forgotten. The house was quiet. Morning light came through the window, soft and warm. Birds sang outside, unaware of the storm that had passed the night before. The pregnant woman sat on the couch, a cup of tea resting in her hands. She wore clean clothes now, dry clothes, but the memory still felt wet. Her husband stood in the kitchen, watching her from a distance. He had faced danger in many places around the world. Real danger. But seeing her humiliated like that had hurt him in a way no battlefield ever could. She placed one hand on her belly. The baby moved gently. She smiled. You're safe, she whispered. We're safe. Her husband sat beside her and took her hand. I should have been there, he said quietly. She shook her head. You came when it mattered. They sat in silence for a moment. Then her phone buzzed. Messages. Hundreds of them. Support. Love. Anger. Tears. People she did not know were sharing her story. Standing with her. Saying her name with respect. She scrolled slowly. This should never happen. You didn't deserve that. You are strong. Tears filled her eyes. Not from pain. From being seen. Across the city, the restaurant stood empty. A sign hung on the door. Closed for review. Inside, chairs were upside down on tables. The place that once felt proud now felt hollow. The manager sat alone in his office. He watched the video again. Not the water. The silence. He saw himself standing there. Saying nothing. Doing nothing. He understood something now. Racism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just watches. And says nothing. Across town, the waiter woke up in a small room that did not feel like home anymore. His phone was quiet now. No friends. No jokes. No laughter. Only consequences. He stared at the ceiling. He had thought power meant control. He was wrong. Power was respect. And he had thrown it away. Back at home, the pregnant woman stood in front of the mirror. She looked at her face. She looked tired, but strong. She spoke out loud, as if practicing for a child. You are worthy, she said. You belong. You matter. Her husband watched from the doorway. That night, neighbors knocked on their door. Flowers. Cards. Warm hugs. A young black girl stood in front of her, holding her mother's hand. You're brave, the girl said shyly. The woman knelt slowly and smiled. No, she said gently. I just didn't stay quiet. Weeks passed. The restaurant reopened with new rules. New staff. New training. But the lessons stayed. People remembered. The story was shared again and again. Not because of hate, but because of truth. One evening, the woman and her husband walked together under the sunset. Her belly was bigger now. Life was close. She stopped and looked at him. Do you think things will change? She asked. He thought for a moment. Change starts when people stop looking away, he said. She nodded. Inside her, the baby kicked, as if agreeing. The narrator's voice softens now. This story is not just about a waiter. It is not just about a restaurant. It is about what happens when people forget another person's humanity. And what happens when someone finally stands up. She did not yell. She did not fight. She simply stood. And that was enough. Because dignity is quiet. But its echo is loud. And karma. Karma always finds its way. Bell, final message. Never judge someone by their skin. Never stay silent when wrong is happening. And never forget, respect costs nothing.